The art of effective communication. Speak clearly, connect deeply, influence naturally. Written and published by Fearless Audiobook. Introduction. Have you ever wondered why some people effortlessly capture attention when they speak, while others struggle to be heard? Why certain individuals seem to build trust instantly, inspire action, and create meaningful relationships wherever they go? The answer is not intelligence, talent, or luck. It's communication. Communication is one of the most powerful skills you will ever develop. It shapes your relationships, influences your career, affects your confidence, and determines how others perceive you. Every conversation is an opportunity to connect, persuade, inspire, learn, or lead. Yet most people spend years learning how to read, write, and work, but very little time learning how to communicate effectively. The truth is that communication is far more than talking. It's about listening deeply. It's about understanding emotions. It's about choosing the right words at the right moment. It's about building trust, resolving conflict, and making people feel valued and understood. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are they possess the ability to communicate with clarity, confidence, and authenticity. They know how to make others feel heard. They know how to turn ideas into influence and conversations into connections. In this audiobook, you'll discover the principles and habits that transform ordinary communication into extraordinary impact. By the end, you'll learn how to speak clearly, connect deeply, and influence naturally, skills that can elevate every area of your life. Let's begin the journey. Chapter 1. Why communication shapes your life. Imagine two people with the same education, similar skills, and equal opportunities. They work in the same company, apply for the same promotion, and possess nearly identical qualifications. Yet one consistently earns trust, builds strong relationships, and advances faster, while the other struggles to gain recognition. What creates the difference? More often than not, the answer is communication. Communication is one of the most powerful forces shaping our lives. It influences how we connect with others, how we solve problems, how we build careers, and even how we see ourselves. Every day, whether we realize it or not, we are communicating through our words, actions, tone of voice, facial expressions, and body language. The quality of our communication determines the quality of our relationships and opportunities. Many people assume communication is simply about talking, but communication is much more than that. It is the process of sharing ideas, emotions, thoughts, and intentions in a way that others can understand. Effective communication is not measured by what you say. It is measured by what the other person understands. Think about some of the most important moments in your life. Perhaps it was a job interview, a first meeting, an important presentation, a difficult conversation, or a moment when you needed someone to trust you. In each of these situations, communication played a central role. The words you chose, the confidence you projected, and the way you connected with others likely influenced the outcome. Communication creates first impressions. Within seconds of meeting someone, people begin forming opinions about us. They assess our confidence, credibility, warmth, and competence. These judgments may not always be accurate, but they often influence future interactions. This is why effective communicators are able to create positive impressions that open doors and create opportunities. Communication also shapes our relationships. Every friendship, family bond, romantic partnership, and professional connection is built upon communication. Trust grows through honest conversations. Understanding develops through listening. Conflicts are resolved through respectful dialogue. When communication is strong, relationships become stronger. When communication breaks down, even the strongest relationships can suffer. One of the hidden costs of poor communication is misunderstanding. A poorly chosen word, an unclear message, or a failure to listen can create confusion, frustration, and conflict. Many disagreements are not caused by bad intentions, but by poor communication. People often assume others understand what they mean, when in reality their message was never communicated clearly. Consider a workplace example. A manager gives vague instructions to a team member. The employee completes the task incorrectly, and both become frustrated. The manager believes the instructions were clear, while the employee believes they were confusing. The problem is not competence, it is communication. Similar situations happen every day in homes, workplaces, and communities around the world. Communication is also deeply connected to influence. Whether you are trying to persuade a customer, motivate a team, teach a student, or inspire a friend, your ability to communicate effectively determines your impact. Great leaders, teachers, entrepreneurs, and speakers all share one common skill. They know how to communicate ideas in a way that moves people to action. Interestingly, communication often matters more than expertise. Many highly talented individuals struggle to achieve their potential because they cannot express their ideas clearly. Meanwhile, others with average abilities excel because they know how to present their thoughts confidently and connect with people effectively. Knowledge is valuable, but the ability to communicate knowledge is what allows it to create results. The good news is that communication is not a gift reserved for a fortunate few. It is a skill that can be learned, practiced, and improved. Nobody is born knowing how to handle difficult conversations, build rapport instantly, or speak with confidence. These abilities develop through awareness, effort, and consistent practice. Throughout this audiobook, you will discover that communication is not about becoming someone else. It is about expressing your authentic self more clearly and effectively. It is about learning how to connect with people, build trust, and make your ideas understood. Communication shapes your life because it shapes every interaction you have with the world. Improve your communication, and you improve your relationships. Improve your relationships, and you improve your opportunities. And when opportunities expand, so does the quality of your life. That is why mastering communication is one of the most valuable investments you can ever make. Chapter 2. The Foundation of Clear Communication. Have you ever listened to someone speak for several minutes and still had no idea what they were trying to say? Perhaps they jumped from one topic to another, used complicated language, or buried their main point beneath unnecessary details. By the end of the conversation, you felt confused rather than informed. Now think about the opposite experience. Someone explains an idea, and within moments everything makes sense. Their message is simple, organized, and easy to follow. You understand exactly what they mean and what they expect from you. The difference is clarity. Clear communication is the foundation of effective communication. Before you can persuade, inspire, lead, or connect with others, you must first be understood. If people cannot understand your message, even the most brilliant ideas lose their power. Many communication problems begin not with speaking, but with thinking. When our thoughts are disorganized, our words often become disorganized as well. We may know what we want to say, but we struggle to express it clearly. This is why effective communicators learn to organize their thinking before they begin speaking. Before entering an important conversation, ask yourself a simple question. What is my main message? If you cannot answer that question in one sentence, your audience will probably struggle to understand you. Great communicators know their destination before they begin speaking. They have a clear purpose and a clear message. Imagine giving directions to someone who is lost. If you provide 10 different routes at the same time, the person will become confused. But if you offer one clear path with simple instructions, they are far more likely to reach their destination. Communication works the same way. Simplicity creates understanding. Unfortunately, many people believe that using complex words makes them appear intelligent. In reality, clarity is often a sign of true mastery. When you fully understand something, you can explain it simply. When you do not understand it well, you tend to hide behind complexity. Think about the best teachers you have ever encountered. They could take difficult ideas and make them understandable. They didn't impress people with complicated language. They impressed people with clarity. This principle applies in every area of life. Whether you are speaking to a friend, writing an email, leading a meeting, or giving a presentation, your goal should be to make your message easy to understand. Shorter sentences, simpler words, and direct explanations often create a stronger impact than long, complicated speeches. Another important element of clear communication is structure. People naturally understand information better when it is organized. If you present ideas in a logical sequence, listeners can follow your thinking more easily. One simple approach is to start with the main point, explain it, and then provide supporting details. Many communicators make the mistake of doing the opposite. They provide endless details before revealing their main point. By the time they finally arrive at the conclusion, people have already lost interest. Clear communication respects the listener's time and attention. It helps people quickly understand what matters most. Assumptions can also destroy clarity. One of the biggest communication mistakes people make is assuming that others know what they know. This is sometimes called the curse of knowledge. Once we become familiar with a subject, it becomes difficult to remember what it feels like not to understand it. As a result, we may skip important explanations or use unfamiliar terms without realizing it. Effective communicators constantly check for understanding. They ask questions, invite feedback, and adjust their explanations when necessary. Clarity is not only about what you say, it is also about how you say it. Your tone of voice can strengthen or weaken your message. Speaking too quickly may overwhelm listeners. Speaking too slowly may cause them to lose interest. Speaking with confidence and appropriate pacing allows your message to be absorbed more effectively. Pauses are also powerful. Many people fear silence and rush to fill every moment with words. Yet strategic pauses give listeners time to process information. A well-placed pause can make an important point more memorable than speaking continuously. Another obstacle to clear communication is emotional interference. When people become angry, defensive, or anxious, their ability to communicate clearly often declines. They may say things they do not mean or struggle to express themselves effectively. This is why self-awareness is so important. Learning to manage your emotions allows you to communicate with greater clarity, even in challenging situations. The calmer your mind, the clearer your message. The most effective communicators understand a simple truth. Communication is not about showing how much you know. It is about helping others understand what you know. The goal is not to impress people with your vocabulary or overwhelm them with information. The goal is to create understanding. As you continue your journey through this audiobook, remember that every advanced communication skill rests upon this foundation: confidence, persuasion, leadership, storytelling, and influence all begin with clarity. When your thoughts are organized, your message is simple, and your intention is clear, communication becomes far more powerful. People listen more carefully, they understand more easily, they trust more readily. And when people truly understand you, meaningful connection becomes possible. Chapter 3. Becoming a better listener. When people think about communication, they usually focus on speaking. They want to become more persuasive, more confident, or more articulate. Yet one of the most important communication skills has very little to do with talking. It is listening. The irony is that the best communicators are often the best listeners. They understand that meaningful communication is not simply about expressing ideas, it is about understanding others. Before you can connect with someone, influence them, or build trust, you must first make them feel heard. Unfortunately, listening is becoming a rare skill. In many conversations, people are not truly listening at all. Instead, they are waiting for their turn to speak. While the other person is talking, they are mentally preparing responses, defending their opinions, or thinking about what they want to say next. As a result, conversations often become two monologues rather than a genuine exchange of ideas. To become a better listener, it is important to understand the difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is automatic. It is the physical act of perceiving sound. Listening, however, is intentional. It requires focus, attention, and genuine interest. You can hear someone's words without understanding their meaning. True listening goes deeper. It seeks to understand not only what is being said, but also why it is being said. Imagine a friend telling you about a difficult day at work. They may describe a disagreement with a colleague or a problem with a project. If you only hear the words, you might immediately jump in with advice. But if you truly listen, you may notice something deeper. Perhaps they are not looking for solutions. Perhaps they are feeling frustrated, discouraged, or misunderstood, and simply want someone to listen. This ability to understand both words and emotions is one of the most valuable communication skills you can develop. A key component of effective listening is presence. In today's world, distractions are everywhere. Phones buzz, notifications appear, and attention is constantly pulled in different directions. Yet when you give someone your full attention, you send a powerful message. You matter. People can often sense when you are distracted. They notice when your eyes wander, when you glance at your phone, or when your responses seem disconnected from the conversation. On the other hand, when you are fully present, people feel respected and valued. Active listening takes this concept even further. Active listening means participating in the conversation without taking control of it. It involves showing interest through eye contact, nodding, and appropriate responses. It also involves asking thoughtful questions that encourage the other person to share more. Simple phrases such as "tell me more about that," or "how did that make you feel?" can transform a conversation. These questions show curiosity and encourage deeper communication. Another important listening skill is avoiding the urge to interrupt. Many people interrupt because they are excited, impatient, or eager to contribute. However, interruptions can make others feel ignored or unimportant. Allowing someone to finish their thoughts demonstrates respect. It also gives you a more complete understanding of their perspective. Often, what someone says at the end of a statement is just as important as what they say at the beginning. Listening also requires setting aside assumptions and judgments. It is easy to listen through the filter of our own experiences and beliefs. We may quickly decide that we already know what someone means, or assume we understand their situation. But effective listeners remain curious. They seek understanding before forming conclusions. They recognize that every person sees the world through a unique lens, shaped by their experiences, values, and emotions. One of the most powerful ways to demonstrate listening is through reflection. This means briefly summarizing or repeating what you have heard in your own words. For example, you might say, "It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed because you've been handling too many responsibilities." This simple technique serves two purposes. First, it confirms that you are paying attention. Second, it gives the other person an opportunity to clarify if you misunderstood something. Perhaps the greatest benefit of listening is the trust it creates. People naturally feel closer to those who listen well. They feel understood, respected, and valued. In both personal and professional relationships, trust grows when people believe their voice matters. Great leaders, teachers, parents, and friends all share this quality. They listen not because they have to, but because they genuinely care about understanding others. As you continue developing your communication skills, remember that effective communication begins long before you speak. It begins with listening. The more you listen, the more you learn. The more you understand, the more effectively you can respond. And in a world where everyone wants to be heard, becoming a better listener may be one of the most powerful ways to stand out. Chapter 4. The Power of Body Language. Imagine meeting someone for the first time. Before they say a single word, you have already formed an impression. You notice how they stand, whether they make eye contact, the expression on their face, and the energy they bring into the room. Within seconds, your brain begins making judgments about their confidence, trustworthiness, friendliness, and credibility. This happens because communication is about much more than words. While words are important, they are only one part of the message we send to others. Our posture, facial expressions, gestures, movements, and tone of voice communicate constantly, often revealing more than our words ever could. This silent language is known as body language, and it plays a powerful role in how people perceive us and respond to us. Think about a time when someone said, "I'm fine," but their face looked tense, their shoulders were slumped, and their voice sounded flat. Even though their words suggested everything was okay, their body language told a different story. Most people naturally trust non-verbal signals more than verbal ones when the two are in conflict. This is because body language often reflects our genuine emotions. While words can be carefully chosen, non-verbal signals are often automatic. They reveal confidence, nervousness, enthusiasm, boredom, openness, and countless other emotions. One of the most important aspects of body language is posture. The way you carry yourself influences both how others perceive you and how you perceive yourself. When people feel insecure or anxious, they often make themselves physically smaller. Their shoulders droop, their head lowers, and their posture becomes closed. In contrast, confident individuals tend to stand upright, keep their shoulders back, and maintain an open posture. Good posture communicates confidence, competence, and self-respect. It tells others that you are comfortable in your own presence. Interestingly, research and experience suggest that posture not only affects how others see you, but can also influence how you feel about yourself. Standing tall can create a greater sense of confidence and control. Eye contact is another powerful communication tool. When used appropriately, eye contact communicates attention, honesty, and engagement. It signals that you are present in the conversation and interested in the person speaking. However, balance is important. Too little eye contact can make you appear distracted, nervous, or untrustworthy. Too much eye contact can feel intimidating or uncomfortable. Effective communicators maintain natural eye contact that feels warm and respectful, rather than forced. Facial expressions are equally important. Human beings are remarkably skilled at reading faces. A genuine smile can create warmth and connection almost instantly. A frown can signal concern or disagreement. Raised eyebrows may communicate surprise or curiosity. The key is authenticity. People are surprisingly good at detecting insincere expressions. A forced smile rarely creates the same impact as a genuine one. Authentic facial expressions help build trust because they align with the emotions being communicated. Gestures also contribute significantly to communication. Hand movements can emphasize key points, add energy to your message, and help listeners stay engaged. Many skilled speakers use gestures naturally to reinforce their ideas. However, excessive or distracting movements can have the opposite effect. Constant fidgeting, tapping, or unnecessary gestures may communicate nervousness and draw attention away from the message. The goal is not to eliminate gestures, but to use them purposefully. Body language is not only about sending signals, it is also about reading them. Becoming aware of other people's nonverbal cues can dramatically improve your communication skills. For example, crossed arms may suggest discomfort, defensiveness, or simply a desire for comfort. Leaning forward often signals interest and engagement. Frequent glances at a phone or clock may indicate boredom or distraction. It is important to remember that no single gesture tells the whole story. Effective observation requires looking for patterns rather than making assumptions based on one movement. Context always matters. Another powerful concept is alignment. The most effective communicators ensure that their words, tone, and body language all communicate the same message. When these elements align, communication feels authentic and trustworthy. Imagine a leader announcing an exciting new opportunity. If their words express enthusiasm but their voice sounds uncertain and their posture appears tense, people may doubt the message. On the other hand, when enthusiasm is reflected in both words and body language, the message becomes far more convincing. Body language also influences relationships. Small actions such as maintaining eye contact, nodding while listening, facing someone directly, and offering a genuine smile can make people feel valued and respected. These simple behaviors strengthen connection and encourage trust. Perhaps the most important lesson about body language is awareness. Many people are completely unaware of the signals they send. They focus entirely on their words, while ignoring the non-verbal messages accompanying them. As you continue developing your communication skills, begin paying attention to both your own body language and the body language of others. Notice how posture affects confidence, how eye contact influences connection, and how facial expressions shape interactions. Words may start conversations, but body language often determines how those conversations are received. When your nonverbal communication supports your message, your words become more believable, your presence becomes more powerful, and your ability to connect with others grows dramatically. In communication, what you say matters, but how you say it often matters just as much. Chapter 5. Speaking with confidence and presence. Have you ever noticed how some people command attention the moment they begin speaking? They don't necessarily have the loudest voice, the most impressive credentials, or the most charismatic personality. Yet when they speak, people listen. What sets them apart is confidence and presence. Confidence is one of the most influential qualities in communication. It affects how others perceive your ideas, your credibility, and your leadership potential. People are naturally drawn to communicators who appear calm, self-assured, and comfortable expressing themselves. However, confidence is often misunderstood. Many people believe confidence means never feeling nervous, never making mistakes, or always knowing exactly what to say. In reality, confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to move forward despite fear. Even experienced speakers, leaders, and performers feel nervous from time to time. The difference is that they do not allow those feelings to control them. They understand that confidence is built through action, not by waiting for fear to disappear. One of the biggest barriers to confident communication is self-doubt. Many people have an inner critic that constantly questions their abilities. Before speaking, they think things like, what if I say something wrong? What if people judge me? Or what if I embarrass myself? These thoughts create anxiety, which often leads to hesitant speech, poor posture, and reduced eye contact. Ironically, the fear of making mistakes often causes the very mistakes people are trying to avoid. The first step toward speaking with confidence is changing your relationship with mistakes. Every skilled communicator has stumbled over words, forgotten points, or experienced awkward moments. Mistakes are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of growth. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Another key to confidence is preparation. Confidence grows when you know your material and understand your message. Think about the difference between giving a presentation on a topic you know well versus a topic you know very little about. In most cases, familiarity reduces uncertainty and increases confidence. Preparation doesn't mean memorizing every word. In fact, trying to memorize everything often increases anxiety because you become afraid of forgetting something. Instead, focus on understanding your main points. When you know the core message, you can communicate more naturally and adapt to different situations. Your voice also plays a major role in how confident you appear. People often judge confidence not only by what you say, but by how you say it. A strong, clear voice communicates authority and credibility. This doesn't mean speaking loudly all the time. It means speaking clearly enough to be heard and understood. Many nervous speakers rush through their words, mumble, or speak too softly. These habits make it harder for listeners to follow the message. One simple improvement is to slow down. When people feel anxious, they often speed up without realizing it. Speaking slightly slower allows you to think more clearly and gives your audience time to absorb your message. It also creates the impression of greater confidence and control. Pauses are equally powerful. Many people fear silence because they think it makes them appear uncertain. In reality, strategic pauses often make speakers appear more confident. A pause gives you time to gather your thoughts and allows important points to stand out. Imagine listening to someone who speaks continuously without stopping. Their message may feel overwhelming. Now imagine a speaker who pauses after a key statement, allowing the audience to reflect. The second speaker often appears more composed and impactful. Presence is closely connected to confidence. While confidence is how you feel about yourself, presence is how you show up in a moment. It is the ability to fully engage with the people around you rather than becoming trapped in your own thoughts. Many communicators lose presence because they focus excessively on themselves. They worry about how they look, how they sound, or whether people are judging them. This inward focus increases anxiety and reduces connection. A powerful solution is to shift your attention outward. Instead of asking, "How am I doing?" ask, "How can I help my audience?" When your focus moves from self-consciousness to service, communication becomes more natural and effective. Think about a teacher who genuinely wants students to learn, a leader who genuinely wants to inspire a team, or a friend who genuinely wants to help someone through a difficult time. Their attention is not on themselves, it is on the people they are communicating with. This outward focus creates authentic presence. Body language also contributes significantly to confidence and presence. Standing tall, maintaining eye contact, and using purposeful gestures can reinforce both your message and your mindset. Often, changing your physical behavior can influence your emotional state. When you carry yourself confidently, you begin to feel more confident. Another important principle is authenticity. Some people try to imitate speakers they admire, believing that confidence requires adopting a different personality. But true confidence comes from being comfortable with who you are. You do not need to be the loudest person in the room. You do not need to be overly energetic or dramatic. Some of the most powerful communicators speak calmly and quietly. Their strength comes from clarity, conviction, and authenticity. People are far more likely to trust someone who feels genuine than someone who appears to be performing. Confidence also grows through repetition. The more you practice speaking, the more familiar it becomes. Conversations, presentations, meetings, and public speaking opportunities all provide valuable experience. Each interaction teaches you something new and gradually expands your comfort zone. Like any skill, communication improves with consistent practice. Confidence is not a gift that some people are born with and others are denied. It is a skill developed through preparation, action, and experience. As you continue your journey toward becoming a more effective communicator, remember that confidence is not about being fearless. It is about speaking even when you feel uncertain. It is about trusting your ability to learn, adapt, and grow. When confidence combines with presence, something remarkable happens. People listen more carefully. They trust you more easily. Your ideas carry greater weight, and your communication becomes not only more effective, but also more impactful. The goal is not to become a perfect speaker. The goal is to become a genuine, confident communicator whose words reflect clarity, purpose, and authenticity. When you achieve that, your presence alone begins to speak before you ever say a word. Chapter 6. Building Trust and Emotional Connection. At the heart of every meaningful relationship lies one essential ingredient: trust. Without trust, communication becomes cautious, guarded, and superficial. People hide their true thoughts, avoid vulnerability, and hesitate to express themselves honestly. But when trust exists, communication becomes open, authentic, and meaningful. Ideas flow more freely, relationships deepen, and people feel safe enough to be themselves. Whether in friendships, families, workplaces, or leadership roles, the ability to build trust and emotional connection is one of the most valuable communication skills you can develop. Many people believe trust is built through grand gestures or dramatic acts of loyalty. In reality, trust is usually built through small, consistent actions over time. It grows when your words align with your actions, when you keep your promises, and when people know they can rely on you. Imagine two individuals. One constantly makes promises but rarely follows through. The other consistently does what they say they will do, even in small matters. Over time, which person would you trust more? Most people would choose the second person because trust is rooted in reliability. Communication plays a crucial role in establishing that reliability. Every conversation sends signals about your character, intentions, and values. People are constantly evaluating whether your words feel honest, sincere, and authentic. Authenticity is one of the foundations of trust. People naturally connect with those who appear genuine, rather than those who seem to be pretending or performing. Authentic communicators do not try to impress everyone. They express themselves honestly while remaining respectful and considerate. This does not mean sharing every thought or emotion without restraint. Authenticity is not about saying whatever comes to mind. Rather, it is about communicating in a way that reflects your true values and intentions. Another essential component of emotional connection is empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and appreciate another person's feelings and perspective. It is the willingness to step outside your own experience and view the world through someone else's eyes. Many communication problems occur because people focus exclusively on their own perspective. They become so concerned with expressing their opinions that they forget to understand the emotions behind another person's words. Imagine a coworker who appears frustrated during a meeting. One response might be to dismiss their concerns or argue against them. A more empathetic response would be to ask questions and seek understanding. Perhaps they are under pressure, feeling overlooked, or dealing with challenges that others do not see. Empathy does not require agreement. You can understand someone's feelings without sharing their opinion. The goal is not necessarily to change your viewpoint, but to understand theirs. This simple shift can transform relationships. People are far more likely to trust and respect those who make an effort to understand them. In many cases, individuals do not need immediate solutions. They need acknowledgement. They need to feel seen, heard, and understood. One of the most effective ways to create emotional connection is through validation. Validation means recognizing another person's feelings without immediately judging, dismissing, or correcting them. For example, if someone says they are overwhelmed, an invalidating response might be, "It's not that bad," or "You're overreacting." While these statements may be well-intentioned, they often make people feel misunderstood. A validating response might sound different. You might say, "That sounds really challenging," or "I can understand why you feel that way." Such responses communicate understanding and compassion. Validation does not mean agreeing with everything someone says. It simply means acknowledging their emotional experience. Trust also grows through vulnerability. Many people assume that vulnerability is a weakness, but in reality, appropriate vulnerability often strengthens relationships. When people share their challenges, mistakes, fears, or uncertainties, they demonstrate authenticity and humanity. This openness invites others to lower their defenses and communicate more honestly. Think about the people you feel closest to. Chances are those relationships involve a level of vulnerability and openness that goes beyond surface-level conversation. Genuine connection requires more than exchanging information. It requires sharing experiences, emotions, and understanding. Another important factor in building trust is consistency. People feel secure when they know what to expect from you. If your behavior changes dramatically from one day to the next, trust becomes difficult to establish. Consistent communication means being dependable, respectful, and honest regardless of circumstances. It means treating people with dignity, even during disagreements. It means maintaining integrity when it would be easier to take shortcuts. Trust can take years to build, but only moments to damage. A broken promise, a dishonest statement, or a careless action can quickly weaken a relationship. This is why trust must be protected through ongoing effort and awareness. Emotional connection also requires presence. In today's fast-paced world, many conversations are distracted by phones, notifications, and competing demands. Yet one of the greatest gifts you can offer another person is your full attention. When you listen attentively, maintain eye contact, and engage sincerely, people feel valued. They sense that they matter. This feeling of significance is a powerful foundation for trust. Strong communicators understand that communication is not merely the exchange of words. It is the exchange of understanding. It is the process of building bridges between people, creating shared experiences and strengthening relationships. As you continue developing your communication skills, remember that trust and emotional connection are not created through clever techniques or persuasive language alone. They are built through authenticity, empathy, consistency, and genuine care for others. When people trust you, they listen more openly. When they feel emotionally connected to you, communication becomes deeper and more meaningful. And when trust and connection work together, relationships flourish in ways that words alone could never achieve. In the end, people may forget exactly what you said, but they will rarely forget how you made them feel. That feeling is where true connection begins. Chapter 7. The Mechanics of Great Conversations. Conversations are the bridges that connect people. Every friendship begins with a conversation. Every business partnership starts with a conversation. Every relationship grows or weakens through conversation. Yet despite spending a significant portion of our lives talking with others, many people never learn the mechanics behind truly great conversations. Some individuals seem to navigate conversations effortlessly. They can walk into a room full of strangers, start meaningful discussions, keep people engaged, and leave a lasting positive impression. Others struggle with awkward silences, uncertainty, or the fear of saying the wrong thing. The good news is that great conversation is not a mysterious talent. It is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned and improved. One of the biggest misconceptions about conversation is that you must be naturally outgoing or charismatic to be good at it. In reality, great conversationalists are not necessarily the people who talk the most. They are often the people who make others feel comfortable, heard, and valued. The first step in mastering conversations is learning how to start them. Many people overthink conversation starters. They believe they need something clever, impressive, or unique. But most successful conversations begin with something simple: a comment about the environment, a shared experience, or a genuine question can open the door to meaningful interaction. The secret is not finding the perfect opening line. The secret is showing genuine curiosity. People naturally enjoy talking about their experiences, interests, goals, and opinions. When you approach conversations with curiosity rather than pressure, communication becomes much easier. Instead of worrying about what to say next, focus on learning something about the other person. Questions are one of the most powerful tools in conversation. However, not all questions create the same results. Closed-ended questions often produce short responses. For example, asking, "Did you enjoy the event?" may result in a simple yes or no. Open-ended questions encourage people to share more. Asking, "What did you enjoy most about the event?" invites a richer and more engaging response. The quality of your questions often determines the quality of your conversations. Another important principle is balance. Great conversations are neither one-sided interviews nor endless monologues. They involve a healthy exchange, where both people have opportunities to contribute. Some individuals dominate conversations by constantly talking about themselves. Others become so focused on listening that they reveal almost nothing about themselves. Neither extreme creates strong connection. Meaningful conversations require both sharing and listening. As you learn about others, allow them to learn about you as well. This exchange creates mutual trust and understanding. One of the most effective ways to keep conversations flowing is to follow the thread of what the other person says. Instead of abruptly changing topics, build upon their responses. For example, if someone mentions a recent trip, you might ask what inspired them to visit that destination, what surprised them most, or what they learned from the experience. By exploring existing topics rather than constantly introducing new ones, conversations feel more natural and engaging. Listening remains essential throughout the process. In fact, many conversation problems occur because people are not fully paying attention. They are thinking about what they want to say next instead of listening to what is being said now. When you truly listen, you discover countless opportunities for meaningful questions and deeper discussion. People leave conversations feeling appreciated because they sense your genuine interest. Another common challenge is handling awkward silences. Many people view silence as a sign that something has gone wrong. As soon as a pause appears, they rush to fill it with words. However, silence is a normal part of conversation. It gives people time to think, process information, and formulate responses. Confident communicators do not fear brief moments of silence. They understand that conversations do not need to be filled with constant noise. Sometimes a thoughtful pause creates more depth than continuous talking. If a conversation does lose momentum, curiosity can bring it back to life. Returning to a previous topic, asking about interests, experiences, goals, or lessons learned can often restart meaningful dialogue. Great conversations also require emotional awareness. Paying attention to another person's energy, enthusiasm, and comfort level helps guide the interaction. For example, if someone becomes excited while discussing a particular topic, it may be worth exploring further. If they seem uncomfortable or uninterested, shifting the conversation may create a better experience for both people. This awareness demonstrates respect and strengthens connection. One often overlooked skill is remembering details. People appreciate when others remember important information about their lives. Recalling a person's goals, interests, family members, or previous experiences signals that you genuinely care about them. Simple statements such as, "How did that project turn out?" or "How was your trip?" can make people feel valued because they show attention and interest. Humor can also enhance conversations when used appropriately. A light-hearted comment or shared laugh often creates warmth and connection. However, effective humor comes naturally. It should never be forced or used at someone else's expense. Authenticity remains the foundation of every great conversation. People are remarkably skilled at detecting insincerity. When someone is pretending to be interested, exaggerating their experiences, or trying too hard to impress others, the interaction often feels uncomfortable. The strongest conversations occur when people show up as themselves. They are curious rather than performative, interested rather than self-focused, and engaged rather than distracted. Perhaps the most important lesson about conversations is that they are not competitions. Too many people approach communication as an opportunity to prove how knowledgeable, successful, or interesting they are. But meaningful conversations are not about winning attention. They are about creating connection. Every conversation offers an opportunity to learn, understand, and strengthen relationships. Some conversations may last only a few minutes, while others may shape the course of your life. The quality of those interactions depends not on clever words or impressive stories, but on your ability to connect genuinely with another human being. As you continue developing your communication skills, remember that great conversations are built on curiosity, listening, balance, and authenticity. Master these fundamentals, and you will discover that meaningful conversations become not only easier, but also far more rewarding. The ability to hold a great conversation is more than a social skill. It is one of the most powerful tools for building relationships, creating opportunities, and enriching every area of your life. Chapter 8. Communicating in difficult situations. It is easy to communicate well when everything is going smoothly. Conversations tend to feel natural when people agree, emotions are calm, and relationships are strong. The true test of communication, however, appears during difficult situations. How do you respond when someone criticizes you? How do you handle disagreements with a coworker, a friend, or a family member? How do you communicate when emotions are running high and tensions begin to rise? These moments reveal the difference between ordinary communicators and exceptional ones. Difficult conversations are unavoidable. No matter how kind, intelligent, or emotionally aware you are, there will be times when misunderstandings occur, expectations clash, and conflicts emerge. The goal is not to avoid these situations entirely. The goal is to navigate them in a way that preserves respect, strengthens understanding, and creates opportunities for growth. One of the biggest mistakes people make during difficult conversations is allowing emotions to take complete control. When we feel attacked, criticized, or frustrated, our natural instinct is often to defend ourselves immediately. We may interrupt, raise our voice, assign blame, or say things we later regret. Unfortunately, emotional reactions often make situations worse rather than better. Imagine a disagreement between two co-workers. One says, "You never communicate important updates." The other immediately responds, "That's not true. You're the one who never pays attention." At this point, the conversation is no longer about solving a problem. It has become a battle of accusations. Both individuals are focused on defending themselves rather than understanding the issue. Effective communicators understand the importance of emotional regulation. They recognize that emotions are valuable signals, but they do not allow those emotions to dictate every response. When you feel yourself becoming defensive, pause, take a breath, give yourself a moment to think before speaking. This small act can prevent unnecessary conflict and create space for a more productive conversation. Another essential skill in difficult situations is separating the problem from the person. Too often people treat disagreements as personal attacks. Instead of focusing on the issue, they begin attacking character, intentions, or past mistakes. As a result, the original problem becomes buried beneath frustration and resentment. Imagine two people discussing a missed deadline. An unproductive response might be, "You're always irresponsible." A more constructive response would be, "Let's discuss what happened and how we can prevent it in the future." The first statement attacks the person. The second addresses the problem. This distinction is critical because people are more willing to cooperate when they do not feel personally threatened. Listening becomes especially important during challenging conversations. Ironically, the moments when we most need to listen are often the moments when we feel least inclined to do so. When emotions rise, many people stop listening. They become focused on proving their point, defending themselves, or preparing counterarguments. However, genuine listening can dramatically reduce tension. When people feel heard, they often become less defensive. Even if they disagree with your perspective, they appreciate the opportunity to express their own. One powerful technique is to summarize what the other person has said before offering your response. You might say, "If I understand correctly, you're frustrated because you felt excluded from the decision." This simple statement accomplishes two things. First, it demonstrates that you are listening. Second, it helps ensure that you accurately understand the issue before responding. Another common challenge is giving feedback. Many people avoid feedback because they fear creating conflict. Others deliver feedback so harshly that it damages relationships. Effective communication requires finding a balance between honesty and respect. Constructive feedback focuses on behavior rather than personality. Instead of saying, "You're careless," you might say, "There were several errors in the report that need to be corrected." Notice the difference. The first statement attacks identity. The second addresses a specific behavior that can be improved. Effective feedback is also future-focused. Rather than dwelling endlessly on mistakes, it emphasizes solutions and improvement. The goal is not to punish someone for what happened, but to help create better outcomes moving forward. Receiving feedback can be equally challenging. Most people enjoy praise, but struggle with criticism. Even well-intentioned feedback can trigger feelings of embarrassment, frustration, or insecurity. However, effective communicators learn to view feedback as information rather than a personal attack. This does not mean accepting every criticism as valid. Some feedback may be inaccurate or unfair. However, approaching feedback with curiosity rather than immediate defensiveness allows you to learn and grow. A useful question to ask yourself is, what can I learn from this? Even when criticism is imperfectly delivered, there is often something valuable to take away. Difficult conversations also require empathy. Behind many conflicts lie unmet needs, unspoken concerns, or misunderstood emotions. People rarely become upset solely because of facts. More often, they react because of how those facts affect them emotionally. Consider a manager who seems angry about a missed deadline. The real issue may not be the deadline itself. The manager may be worried about disappointing clients, losing credibility, or creating additional pressure for the team. When you look beyond surface-level complaints and seek to understand underlying emotions, communication becomes far more effective. This is where empathy becomes a powerful tool. Empathy allows you to acknowledge another person's feelings without necessarily agreeing with their perspective. For example, you might say, "I can understand why that situation would be frustrating." Such statements reduce tension because they communicate understanding rather than resistance. Another important principle is choosing the right time and place for difficult conversations. Some discussions should not happen in the middle of a busy workplace, during moments of extreme stress, or when emotions are already overwhelming. Timing matters. Privacy matters. Emotional readiness matters. A thoughtful conversation held at the right moment is often far more productive than an impulsive conversation held at the wrong one. It is also important to recognize that not every disagreement requires complete agreement. Many people enter difficult conversations believing that success means convincing the other person to adopt their viewpoint. In reality, successful communication often means achieving understanding rather than agreement. Two people can hold different opinions while still respecting each other. They can disagree without becoming enemies. They can seek common ground without abandoning their values. This mindset shifts communication from competition to collaboration. Ultimately, difficult conversations are opportunities. They provide opportunities to strengthen relationships, deepen understanding, and develop emotional maturity. While these conversations may feel uncomfortable, avoiding them often creates even greater problems over time. The most effective communicators do not run from difficult discussions. They approach them with courage, patience, empathy, and respect. They remain calm under pressure. They focus on understanding rather than winning. They address problems without attacking people. As you continue developing your communication skills, remember that your greatest growth will often occur during your most challenging conversations. Anyone can communicate well when circumstances are easy. True mastery appears when circumstances are difficult. When you learn to communicate with clarity, empathy, and composure during conflict, you gain a skill that can transform relationships, strengthen trust, and create solutions where others see only problems. In the end, difficult conversations are not obstacles to meaningful relationships. When handled wisely, they become the very experiences that make those relationships stronger. Chapter 9. The Art of Persuasion and Influence. Every day, whether we realize it or not, we are trying to influence others. A parent encourages a child to develop good habits. A manager motivates a team to achieve a goal. A teacher inspires students to learn. A friend recommends a book, an idea, or a new perspective. In each case, communication is being used to influence thoughts, decisions, and actions. Influence is a natural part of human interaction, yet many people feel uncomfortable with the idea of persuasion because they associate it with manipulation. They imagine pressure, deception, or attempts to control others. However, true persuasion is very different from manipulation. Manipulation seeks to benefit one person at the expense of another. Persuasion, when practiced ethically, seeks to create understanding, alignment, and positive action. It is not about forcing people to do something they do not want to do. It is about presenting ideas in a way that helps others see value, possibility, and opportunity. At its core, influence begins with trust. People are unlikely to follow advice, support ideas, or change their behavior if they do not trust the person delivering the message. Before anyone is influenced by what you say, they evaluate who you are. They ask themselves, consciously or unconsciously, whether you are credible, honest, and sincere. This is why trust is often more persuasive than any argument. Imagine two individuals presenting the same idea. One has a reputation for honesty and integrity. The other is known for exaggeration and inconsistency. Even if their messages are identical, people are more likely to trust the first person because credibility amplifies influence. Trust, however, is only the beginning. Effective persuasion also requires understanding people. One of the biggest mistakes communicators make is focusing exclusively on their own goals. They become so committed to explaining what they want that they fail to consider what the other person wants. Great communicators understand that influence starts with understanding motivations. Every person has needs, desires, concerns, and priorities. Some are motivated by security, others seek achievement, recognition, growth, or belonging. The more you understand what matters to someone, the more effectively you can communicate in a way that resonates with them. Imagine trying to persuade a team to adopt a new process at work. Instead of simply explaining why you like the idea, you consider how the change might benefit them. Perhaps it will save time, reduce stress, improve results, or create new opportunities. When people see how an idea aligns with their interests, they become more open to it. Another powerful principle of persuasion is clarity. People are more likely to act when they clearly understand a message. Confusion creates hesitation. Simplicity creates confidence. Some communicators believe that overwhelming people with facts, statistics, and details will make their argument stronger. While evidence is important, too much information can make decision-making more difficult. Effective persuasion often involves simplifying complex ideas into clear, understandable messages. Think about some of the most memorable speeches, advertisements, and leadership messages. They are often built around simple, powerful ideas rather than endless details. Emotion also plays a significant role in influence. Many people believe decisions are made purely through logic, but human behavior tells a different story. While logic helps justify decisions, emotions often drive them. People may choose a career because it gives them a sense of purpose. They may support a cause because it inspires hope. They may buy a product because it makes them feel confident, secure, or excited. This does not mean abandoning logic. The most persuasive communication combines both reason and emotion. Facts appeal to the mind, while emotions appeal to the heart. Together they create a more compelling message. Storytelling is one of the most effective ways to engage both logic and emotion. A well-told story helps people see themselves in a situation, imagine possibilities, and connect with ideas on a deeper level. This is one reason stories have been used throughout history to teach lessons, inspire action, and shape cultures. Another key aspect of influence is confidence. People tend to trust ideas that are presented with conviction. If you seem uncertain about your own message, others may become uncertain as well. Confidence communicates belief, and belief is contagious. However, confidence must be balanced with humility. Overconfidence can appear arrogant and dismissive. Effective communicators remain open to questions, feedback, and alternative perspectives. They present their ideas strongly while respecting the views of others. One of the most overlooked principles of persuasion is leading by example. Words are powerful, but actions are often more convincing. People pay attention to whether your behavior matches your message. A leader who talks about discipline but lacks discipline will struggle to inspire others. A person who encourages honesty while behaving dishonestly loses credibility. Influence grows when actions reinforce words. This is why some of the most influential individuals in history were not simply great speakers. They were people whose actions reflected their beliefs. Their character strengthened their message. It is also important to recognize that persuasion is not about winning every conversation. Some people will disagree with you. Others may need time to consider new ideas. Effective communicators understand that influence is often a gradual process rather than an instant result. The goal is not to force agreement. The goal is to create understanding, build trust, and present ideas in a way that encourages thoughtful consideration. Ultimately, persuasion is about helping people move from where they are to where they could be. It is about inspiring action without pressure, guiding without controlling, and influencing without manipulating. As you continue your communication journey, remember that the most powerful form of influence does not come from clever techniques or persuasive tricks. It comes from trust, understanding, clarity, authenticity, and genuine concern for others. When people trust you, understand you, and believe that you have their best interests at heart, influence becomes natural. And when influence is built on integrity rather than manipulation, it has the power to create positive change in both individual lives and entire communities. Chapter 10. The Power of Storytelling. Imagine trying to teach someone an important lesson. You could present a list of facts, statistics, and instructions, or you could tell a story. Which approach do you think they will remember? For thousands of years, human beings have used stories to communicate ideas, preserve knowledge, inspire action, and strengthen relationships. Long before books, presentations, and social media existed, stories were the primary way people shared wisdom and passed important lessons from one generation to the next. Even today, stories remain one of the most powerful communication tools available. Think about the conversations you've had over the past week. Chances are many of them involved stories. Someone shared an experience from work. A friend described a challenge they overcame. A family member recalled a memorable event. Stories are woven into nearly every aspect of human communication because they help people connect, understand, and remember. One reason storytelling is so effective is that people naturally think in stories. Facts and information may be useful, but stories provide context and meaning. They help us understand not only what happened, but also why it matters. Consider the difference between these two statements. Persistence is important. Now compare that to a story about a person who faced repeated failures, experienced setbacks, and was tempted to quit, but eventually succeeded because they refused to give up. The lesson is the same, but the story creates a much stronger impact. Instead of simply hearing an idea, listeners experience it emotionally. This emotional connection is what makes stories memorable. Research and everyday experience both suggest that people often forget facts and figures, but they remember stories for years. Stories activate imagination, engage emotions, and help listeners visualize situations. As a result, information becomes easier to understand and retain. Storytelling is particularly valuable because it appeals to both logic and emotion. Facts speak to the mind, but stories speak to the heart. When these two elements work together, communication becomes far more persuasive and meaningful. A good story does not need to be dramatic or extraordinary. In fact, some of the most effective stories come from ordinary experiences. A lesson learned from a mistake, a challenge overcome, or a simple interaction with another person can become a powerful story when it contains a meaningful message. At its core, every effective story follows a basic structure. First, there is a situation. This introduces the setting, the people involved, and the circumstances. Next comes a challenge or conflict. Something happens that creates difficulty, uncertainty, or tension. Finally, there is a resolution. The challenge is addressed, and a lesson or insight emerges. This simple structure keeps listeners engaged because human beings are naturally curious about outcomes. Once a challenge is introduced, people want to know what happens next. Think about your favorite books, movies, or speeches. They all use some version of this pattern. A challenge creates interest, and the resolution provides meaning. Storytelling is not only useful for public speaking, it can improve communication in everyday life as well. Leaders use stories to inspire teams and communicate vision. Teachers use stories to explain complex ideas. Parents use stories to teach values. Friends use stories to strengthen relationships. Even businesses use stories to connect with customers and communicate their purpose. Stories transform information into experiences. Another important benefit of storytelling is relatability. People may struggle to connect with abstract concepts, but they can often connect with human experiences. A story allows listeners to see themselves in a situation. They imagine how they would feel, what they would do, and what they might learn. This ability to create connection is one reason storytelling is such a powerful leadership tool. Great leaders often use stories to communicate values, inspire action, and build unity. Rather than simply giving instructions, they share experiences that help people understand the larger purpose behind a goal. Authenticity is essential in storytelling. Some communicators believe they need extraordinary stories to hold attention. In reality, authenticity matters far more than drama. People are drawn to stories that feel genuine. They appreciate honesty, vulnerability, and real-life experiences. A simple story told with sincerity often creates a stronger connection than an exaggerated story designed to impress. It is also important to remember that storytelling is not about making yourself the hero of every story. The purpose is not to showcase your achievements. The purpose is to communicate a lesson, insight, or idea that benefits the listener. The most effective storytellers focus on serving their audience rather than seeking attention. Timing and brevity also matter. A story should support the message, not overshadow it. Some people become so absorbed in details that listeners lose sight of the main point. Effective storytellers know how to include enough detail to create interest while keeping the story focused and relevant. A useful question to ask is, what is the lesson? Before telling any story, identify the key message you want listeners to remember. When the lesson is clear, the story becomes more purposeful and impactful. Perhaps the greatest power of storytelling lies in its ability to create connection. Stories allow people to share experiences, emotions, challenges, and wisdom. They help us understand one another on a deeper level. Facts may inform, but stories inspire. Facts may educate, but stories connect. Facts may explain, but stories persuade. As you continue developing your communication skills, look for opportunities to use stories intentionally. Share lessons from your experiences. Use stories to illustrate ideas. Use them to teach, encourage, motivate, and connect. When combined with clarity, empathy, and authenticity, storytelling becomes one of the most powerful communication tools you will ever possess. The best communicators do not simply share information. They tell stories that people remember, stories that inspire action, and stories that leave a lasting impact long after the conversation has ended. Chapter 11. Communicating for Success in Work and Leadership. Communication is often called a soft skill, but in reality it produces some of the hardest results. In the workplace, communication influences productivity, teamwork, leadership, problem-solving, and career growth. No matter how talented, intelligent, or hardworking you are, your ability to communicate effectively will play a major role in your professional success. Many people believe that success at work depends primarily on technical expertise. While expertise is important, it is rarely enough on its own. The individuals who rise into leadership positions are often those who can communicate ideas clearly, build strong relationships, inspire others, and create alignment around shared goals. In other words, leadership is communication in action. Every workplace relies on communication. Teams collaborate through communication. Managers provide direction through communication. Organizations build culture through communication. When communication is effective, people understand expectations, trust one another, and work together efficiently. When communication breaks down, confusion, mistakes, and frustration quickly follow. One of the most valuable professional communication skills is clarity. People perform best when they understand what is expected of them. Unfortunately, many workplace problems arise because instructions, goals, or expectations are unclear. Leaders often assume they have communicated effectively, when in reality, their message has not been fully understood. Effective communicators avoid ambiguity whenever possible. They provide clear direction, explain priorities, and ensure that everyone understands the desired outcome. They do not leave important information open to interpretation. Clarity creates confidence. When people know what is expected, they can focus their energy on execution rather than guessing. Another essential skill is active listening. Many professionals focus heavily on speaking, but overlook the importance of listening. Yet some of the most respected leaders are exceptional listeners. Great leaders understand that valuable ideas can come from anyone. They listen to employees, customers, colleagues, and stakeholders. They ask thoughtful questions and remain open to perspectives different from their own. Listening accomplishes more than gathering information. It also builds trust. People are more likely to support leaders who genuinely listen to their concerns, ideas, and feedback. Communication also plays a critical role in teamwork. Successful teams are not simply groups of talented individuals. They are groups of people who communicate effectively. Team members share information, coordinate efforts, solve problems collaboratively, and address challenges openly. In high-performing teams, communication is proactive rather than reactive. People do not wait for misunderstandings to grow into larger problems. They address issues early, clarify expectations, and maintain open channels of communication. This culture of transparency helps teams adapt more quickly and perform more effectively. Meetings provide another opportunity to demonstrate strong communication skills. Unfortunately, many meetings suffer from unclear objectives, unnecessary complexity, or poor participation. Effective communicators approach meetings with purpose. They know the main objective, communicate clearly, encourage productive discussion, and ensure that decisions and next steps are understood. A good meeting creates clarity. A poor meeting creates confusion. Presentations are equally important in professional environments. Whether you are presenting to a client, sharing ideas with a team, or speaking to senior leadership, your ability to communicate confidently can significantly influence outcomes. Many people fear presentations because they worry about being judged. However, successful presenters focus less on themselves and more on their audience. They ask, "How can I provide value?" rather than "How do I avoid making mistakes?" This shift in focus often reduces anxiety and improves effectiveness. Strong presentations share several characteristics. They are clear, organized, engaging, and audience-centered. Rather than overwhelming listeners with information, they focus on the most important points and communicate them in a memorable way. Leadership communication extends beyond meetings and presentations. One of the most important responsibilities of a leader is creating alignment around a vision. People perform at their best when they understand not only what they are doing, but also why they are doing it. Leaders who communicate purpose effectively help others see how their work contributes to larger goals. Consider a team working on a challenging project. A manager might simply assign tasks and expect completion. A leader, however, explains the significance of the project, highlights its impact, and helps team members understand their role in achieving success. This creates motivation because people are connected to a meaningful purpose rather than just a list of responsibilities. Trust is another cornerstone of leadership communication. People are more willing to follow leaders they trust. Trust grows when leaders communicate honestly, consistently, and transparently. It grows when actions align with words and when promises are kept. Leaders do not build credibility through titles alone. They build credibility through communication and behavior over time. This is especially important during periods of uncertainty or change. When organizations face challenges, employees often look to leaders for guidance and reassurance. Clear communication can reduce anxiety, build confidence, and maintain focus during difficult times. Silence, on the other hand, often creates confusion and speculation. One of the most overlooked aspects of professional communication is emotional intelligence. Effective leaders recognize that workplace decisions affect people, not just processes. They understand that communication involves both information and emotion. When leaders demonstrate empathy, acknowledge concerns, and communicate with respect, they strengthen relationships and create healthier work environments. The best leaders are not necessarily the smartest people in the room. They are often the people who communicate most effectively. They know how to listen, inspire, clarify, encourage, and connect. As you continue your communication journey, remember that professional success is not determined solely by what you know. It is also influenced by how well you communicate what you know. Whether you are leading a team, collaborating with colleagues, presenting ideas, or building professional relationships, communication remains one of your most valuable assets. In the workplace, communication is more than a skill, it is a multiplier. It amplifies your knowledge, strengthens your relationships, expands your influence, and increases your ability to create meaningful results. And for leaders, communication is not just part of the job, it is the job. Chapter 12. The Communication Habits of Exceptional People. Throughout this audiobook, we have explored the principles of effective communication. We have discussed clarity, listening, body language, confidence, trust, conversation skills, conflict resolution, persuasion, storytelling, and leadership communication. But knowing these principles is only the beginning. The real question is this: what separates exceptional communicators from everyone else? The answer is not natural talent. Many people assume that great communicators are simply born with a special gift. They believe some individuals naturally possess charisma, confidence, and influence, while others do not. However, when you closely observe exceptional communicators, a different truth emerges. Their success is not built on talent alone, it is built on habits. Exceptional communicators consistently practice behaviors that strengthen their ability to connect, influence, and inspire. These habits may seem simple, but over time they create extraordinary results. One of the most important habits is intentional listening. Most people listen passively. Exceptional communicators listen actively. They focus completely on the person speaking. They avoid distractions. They pay attention not only to words, but also to emotions, tone, and underlying meaning. They understand that listening is not a pause between opportunities to speak. It is an opportunity to learn, understand, and build trust. Because they listen deeply, they gain valuable insights that others often miss. They understand people's concerns, motivations, and perspectives more clearly, allowing them to communicate more effectively in return. Another habit of exceptional communicators is curiosity. They approach conversations with a genuine desire to learn. Rather than assuming they already know everything, they ask questions, seek understanding, and remain open to new perspectives. Curiosity makes conversations more engaging because people enjoy speaking with individuals who show authentic interest in their experiences and ideas. More importantly, curiosity prevents complacency. It keeps communicators learning and growing throughout their lives. Exceptional communicators are also highly aware of their audience. Before speaking, they consider who they are communicating with and what that person needs. They recognize that effective communication is not about delivering the same message in the same way to everyone. A teacher communicates differently than a manager. A friend communicates differently than a business leader. Exceptional communicators adapt their approach while remaining authentic. They understand that communication is successful only when the message is understood. Another defining habit is clarity. Exceptional communicators regularly simplify complex ideas. They organize their thoughts before speaking and focus on the essential message rather than unnecessary details. They know that confusion weakens communication while clarity strengthens it. Whenever possible, they ask themselves a simple question: how can I make this easier to understand? This commitment to clarity makes their communication more memorable, persuasive, and effective. Self-awareness is another characteristic that sets exceptional communicators apart. Many people move through conversations without reflecting on how they communicate. Exceptional communicators do the opposite. They pay attention to their strengths, weaknesses, habits, and patterns. After important conversations, they often reflect on questions such as: what went well? What could I improve? Did I listen effectively? Was my message clear? How did the other person respond? This habit of reflection creates continuous improvement. Exceptional communicators also seek feedback. They understand that personal growth requires honest evaluation. Rather than becoming defensive when receiving feedback, they view it as valuable information. They recognize that feedback, even when uncomfortable, often reveals blind spots that would otherwise remain hidden. Humility plays a significant role in this process. The most effective communicators do not assume they have mastered communication completely. They understand that there is always room for improvement. This growth mindset keeps them learning long after others have stopped. Consistency is another essential habit. Trust is built through repeated experiences, not occasional moments of excellence. Exceptional communicators consistently demonstrate honesty, reliability, empathy, and respect. They communicate with integrity, even when conversations are difficult. They remain respectful during disagreements. They follow through on commitments. Over time, this consistency strengthens their credibility and influence. Another powerful habit is emotional control. Life inevitably presents stressful situations, criticism, misunderstandings, and conflict. Exceptional communicators understand that emotional reactions can either strengthen or damage communication. This does not mean suppressing emotions. Instead, it means managing them effectively. They pause before reacting. They remain calm under pressure. They choose responses intentionally, rather than allowing emotions to dictate their behavior. As a result, they communicate more effectively during challenging situations and maintain stronger relationships over time. Exceptional communicators are also lifelong learners. They read books, observe skilled speakers, study communication techniques, and remain curious about human behavior. They treat communication as a skill that can always be refined. Just as athletes train their bodies and musicians practice their instruments, exceptional communicators continuously develop their ability to connect with others. Perhaps the most important habit of all is genuine care for people. The most influential communicators do not focus solely on being impressive. They focus on being helpful. They seek to understand before being understood. They value relationships over ego. They care about the people they communicate with. This mindset transforms communication from a performance into a service. People are naturally drawn to those who make them feel respected, valued, and understood. When genuine care becomes the foundation of communication, trust grows more easily, relationships deepen, and influence becomes more natural. As you reflect on everything covered in this audiobook, remember that becoming an exceptional communicator is not about mastering a single technique. It is about developing habits that consistently strengthen your communication over time. You do not need to transform overnight. Small improvements practiced consistently can create remarkable results. A little more listening, a little more clarity, a little more empathy, a little more self-awareness. Over weeks, months, and years, these small improvements compound. The journey of communication mastery never truly ends. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to learn. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to improve. Every relationship becomes an opportunity to practice the skills that make communication meaningful. Exceptional communicators are not born exceptional. They become exceptional through deliberate practice, continuous learning, and genuine connection with others. And the same opportunity is available to you. The habits that create extraordinary communicators are not reserved for a select few. They are choices that can be made every day. The more consistently you make those choices, the more naturally effective communication becomes. Over time, speaking clearly, connecting deeply, and influencing naturally will no longer feel like skills you are practicing. They will become part of who you are. As we reach the end of this audiobook, remember that effective communication is not a destination, it is a lifelong journey. Throughout these chapters, you have discovered that communication is about far more than speaking. It is about listening with intention, expressing yourself with clarity, understanding emotions, building trust, handling conflict with maturity, and creating genuine connections with others. It is one of the few skills that can improve every area of your life at the same time. The quality of your relationships, your career opportunities, your leadership potential, and even your confidence are deeply influenced by how well you communicate. But knowledge alone is not enough. The true value of this audiobook lies in what you do next. Choose one lesson and begin applying it today. Listen more carefully, ask better questions, communicate with greater empathy. Pay attention to your body language, speak with confidence and authenticity. Small changes practiced consistently can create extraordinary results over time. Remember, people may not always remember your exact words, but they will remember how you made them feel. Every conversation is an opportunity to encourage, inspire, understand and connect. Every interaction is a chance to strengthen trust and leave a positive impact. You do not need to become a perfect communicator. You simply need to become a better communicator than you were yesterday. As you move forward, continue learning, practicing, and refining these skills. The more intentionally you communicate, the more naturally these habits will become part of who you are. Speak clearly, so people understand you. Connect deeply, so people trust you. Influence naturally, so people are inspired by you. And never underestimate the power of a single conversation to change a life, starting with your own.